Hello, everybody. Welcome to Word on Wednesday. I am so very excited about our guest today. And she is backstage. I'm going to bring her on in just a moment. But this is one of the incredible solutions that God is bringing to America. And I have a feeling that they're not going to stay just on a national level, but they're going to go internationally. And what her organization is doing, I'm going to give you a little bit of her bio here in a minute, but what their organization is doing is they are answering the question, how can we create an education system that will honor God and will give children the best opportunity to walk out their God-given destiny without being messed with by the devil? Because how many of you know this is where the enemy went? He went into the school system, and we are sending hundreds of thousands of kids to school every single day. And unfortunately, there is pornography in the schools, dressed in really pretty animation on the front, looks like innocent books. We have vocabulary assignments to make sure that they know all of the transgender vocabulary words, which is really dangerous when it comes to language, because language is spiritual. When Adam was given the task to name all of creation, can you believe it? God said, hey, you get to name all these. It's because God wanted Adam to have authority over all creation. Now, when we teach our children cisgender, pansexual, queer, all of it, okay, there's so many terms now and they're required to learn them. What's happening is not only is culture being shifted in their hearts and minds, but spiritually, they're actually coming underneath the authority of the spirit and the groups of people, the agenda that is now taking authority in a spirit realm. This means that they're coming under an unholy spirit. So we have a lot of work to do to see our children come into a place where they are not just safe, but they are being launched into the greatest days for Jesus. I know that my kids, I have 5, you probably have kids or grandkids, and you want to see them thrive and not just be in 24/7 warfare in their schools. So there are a lot of people that are going into the school system, flipping school boards, showing up to school board meetings. And we're going to be talking about that so much over the next year. It's so important. And there's also another offensive move, and you're going to meet her today. God gave this woman an incredible vision for what it might look like to put schools in America that would do everything and more that I've described today. So let me give you her bio, just a little bit of her bio, because I want her to share a little bit more about herself when I bring her on. Lesley Russell, met her in Southern California. She is an educational reformer. That is the truth. Innovator, speaker, advocate for children, and a visionary. She started out her career in corporate America after college, and she left to get her master's in secondary education. Excuse me, and has homeschooled. This is where you get all sorts of heroic claps from me, Lesley, for homeschooling for over 20 years. That's not easy. And was a youth leader for over 16 years. She is the founder of the K through 12 alternative education program and movement called Equip 210, formerly known as an independent learning academy, and founder of Next Generation Ministries. So she's got so much here. I could keep reading, keep reading. She has been connected with Turning Point USA. Many of you are familiar with Charlie Kirk. She is married to her husband, Joe, for over 30 years. They have 4 amazing children in their teens and their 20s, and they all love Jesus. So I am super excited. I'm going to bring Lesley on here. Lesley, thank you so much for being with us today. You and I met over a year ago. We were on a Zoom together, and I was asking you, tell me about this. Equip 210. Tell me about these schools that you are planting in America. And I was so, uh, number one, hope, like it gave me hope that God is giving people these reformation strategies to create new institutions. It's like the new improved version of the school system.
Mhm.
And because I know for me, I I don't mind homeschooling. My husband does the majority of it now because of my schedule, and we're happy to homeschool. But what we know is that when our children go to a classroom and they are able to engage with other kids, they're able to learn from other people, they're able to be exposed to different cultures and diversity, but under the banner of a righteous group of people. I don't mean perfect. I don't mean righteous the way the world says it. I mean people who honor and fear God under that kind of system. And I don't know if that totally exists right now, except for to say, here's Equip 210. It's here. And you've been launching them all across the US in different places. And I'm going to get down into the nitty gritty of what it actually looks like, because you're launching in churches, you're launching in barns, you're launching in all these different places. And today, everybody listen up. You're going to have an opportunity to hear
Mhm.
about a way in which you can inspire maybe your pastors. Maybe you want to go and say, hey, listen, I heard about this on this broadcast. What do you think about considering this in our school? Maybe it's something that you want to put together with some other moms, and you are just carrying this burden to open a school because you love your children and you know there has to be a reformation. Reformation is transformation of structures. There has to be a transformation of the school structure. And you're saying, well, man, God, is this me? Okay, maybe you're calling me to do this. So this is going to be a message today, also an invitation. Is there anything else that you want to share? I know that you've been heavily involved with Don't Mess with Our Kids and Her Voice, which I'm so glad about. But is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about yourself before I start asking questions from you? I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
absolutely. Well, I'm so honored and blessed to be on the show, and I just think the world of you, Jenny, and everything that you're doing. And I'm so blessed to be a part of it. And I'm all about being an advocate for children and for parents' rights and parent empowerment. And I've been incredibly blessed to be able to homeschool my own 4 children over the past 20 years. My husband and I are from New York, and we've lived in New York, Connecticut, Georgia, and California the past 15 years. And we just graduated our youngest son. He's now 19. He's in his first year in college. But all 4 of our children were homeschooled. They were all homeschooled, all different ways. I've done everything. I've been the homeschool mom that did like everything around the kitchen table. When we lived in Georgia, you can afford these really big homes in Georgia, and we actually had a schoolroom. The alphabet going around the top and the American flag and own separate schoolroom. And that was great. And then we moved to California, and, homes were smaller, and we did everything around the kitchen table, dining room table. And we actually launched the beginning of the movement called Independent Learning Academy. It was called Thursday Co-op. Around that kitchen table was where the Lord really spoke to me, in that we were going to start a co-op, and we started it with 65 children in our home, and the story just unfolds from there. So I've always been about children. I used to be in corporate America, and then I was in medical sales, and I started volunteering at a runaway shelter outside New York City in the Bronx. And I just saw that I really had a calling and a heart to make a difference in children's lives. So I completely pivoted my career, went back, got my master's, and was a public school teacher outside New York City. And then I moved to Connecticut, and this sweet little family moved in next door to me, and they homeschooled. I never even heard of the word before. This is like, over
Wow.
20 years ago. I'd never even heard of the word homeschool. I was a public school teacher, and I'm like, what do you mean you school at home? And I saw these little girls grow up, and I was so blown away by them and everything that they did. I knew that I wanted to homeschool our own children. So I've been so blessed in being able to be a homeschool mom of 20 years, being the founder of a very large movement in Southern California, Independent Learning Academy. We launched campuses in Orange County, San Diego County, actually up even in Idaho, Meridian, Idaho. where we grew campuses to 1,000 students, 500 students. We've had thousands and thousands of students come through our program over the past 12 years. We wrote our own high school program that enabled students to get into their colleges of choice, full merit, trustee level scholarships. Children graduate from our program starting their own companies, going into the mission field, going to college. The biggest thing is that they know what it is that they want to be doing. And so what Equip 210 is we've just pivoted, and it's not pivoted, but really I use the word evolve. So we've evolved from Independent Learning Academy, which we've been a part of and have founded for 12 years, onto the next mountain called Equip 210, which is really honing in on a child's identity in Jesus Christ and the calling on their life. And it's all about Ephesians 2:10,
Okay.
raising them up.
Okay.
So
So
that
right
is my
there.
whole mission and
Okay.
vision, is
I'm
identity and calling on a child's life.
okay. I'm going to pause just because I know you're giving us so much right now, but I just want to highlight some of the things you're saying so that we don't bump past something really important. Um, you could have just stayed at homeschooling, get your kids all the way through. Yes, we made it. I mean, as a homeschooling mom, when I saw one of mine graduate and then the next one, number one, I didn't do it alone. Pastor Heather, who's on here today, she helped with this co-op and got my kids graduated. Hallelujah. But as a homeschooling mom, I'm thinking, okay, if we can get all five of these through.
Yes.
But for you to say, you must have felt like, you know, obviously you could just have helped your own children, but something came over you, maybe some kind of hope that other kids, other moms could have success in a system that was not the public school system. Was
Oh,
that, do you think that's
absolutely.
just a God-given thing that God just put it on you, or share that a little bit?
No, that is truly my calling. Like, it really is. It is my DNA. And, with anything, God gives us a calling, and it's our choice to step into it or not. And I fully and completely have stepped into it. And I celebrate. And I'm so excited when other parents and other children are successful. Like, I celebrate that. It's as if it's like my own child. And so I'm like a champion of children, and I'm a
Okay.
champion of moms. I'm like the biggest cheerleader, and I love it. I It's what I from the time I wake up in the morning, I'm just like so excited, and I thank God that I get to do it. And in the role now, we get to equip others, train others, coach others, mentor others, and providing everything so that they can do it. So it's very replicable and scalable, so that they can have that success. Because I've seen it, like my own four children. My oldest daughter's married, she's 25. She's in seminary right now to be a pastor. She leads worship at her church. My second daughter is doing her dream job. She's a labor and delivery nurse. From the time that she was like 3 years old, she said that she was going to have hundreds and hundreds of babies someday. And then here she is, like delivering hundreds and hundreds of babies where she's at. And then third daughter is in her senior year of college, and she's going to be a children's therapist. And then my son is going to go into engineering, and they are all doing what they have felt led to do. They're walking in their calling. And we've seen this with thousands of our students who've graduated, who come through our program. Where they walk in, and if they've been in a more traditional setting where they have felt like, what's wrong with me because I can't keep up with the class? What's wrong with me because, see, in a traditional school setting, a lot of times when you have 30 or so students in a class, if you can't keep up and you can't be going at the rate and the pace, it's like, well, there's something wrong with you. So we're going to pull you out. We're going to give you an IEP, because
Wow.
obviously there's something wrong with you, because you can't keep up, and you're not able to be where everyone else is. But really, we all learn differently. If somebody gave you and I, Jenny, something to learn, I'm going to interface with it differently than you're going to interface with it. If you have more than one child in your home, you know that every single child is different. Siblings look
Well,
different from each other. They learn differently. And so here we've created a whole public school system expecting children to learn the same way. And by the way, if they don't, then what's wrong with you?
yeah.
And so what's great is to celebrate children, and they all come with a seed of learning. They all come with a key, and it's really the being able to unlock that and to release that, and for them to be part of the learning experience. And so
Wow.
that's what we do pedagogically. That's a big word for meaning like how teachers teach and how children learn.
Wow. Well, that's so interesting because I'm having flashbacks. I was the kid sitting at the end of the class when all the kids had gone out to recess because they finished. I was the kid that wasn't finished. Elementary school, junior high, high school, college. My husband, he was probably one of the first people finished with everything. He could study for an hour and be satisfied with a B or a C.
Mhm.
I was like, I'm going to pull an all-nighter. I had to work very, 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 very hard for good grades. A lot of people think I'm probably just naturally smart at something because sometimes we look at the fruit on people's life and we think, oh, that probably just came so easily. Learning, reading, studying, and test taking in the public school system was not easy for me. I was not a linear learner. I'm a visual learner. I'm actually not an audio learner either. I see things visually, and I have a concept of things through space, not through time. And I since learned that some of my kids were the same way. So in homeschooling, we were able to adapt to those different changes. But anyway, that is really interesting. This is what people want to know right now. And I'm seeing it all in the comments is people want to know, what does this equip 210, this whole thing look like? And what I want to do is I want to start with, because the thing is, everybody is Lesley has this incredibly generous offer today. Her and I talked, what was it, 2 weeks ago? And then we talked through audio text yesterday and today. And the Lord gave her a template or an offer basically for today. And for those of you, and I'm just asking you, I'm asking you to seriously, especially if you're a mother, to go before the Lord and say, am I to be somebody who either gets this information to the right people, or am I to start a school? Because right now we are in the fight of our life for our country, for these laws, I mean, the school system, Lesley, the schools have been turning in parents who they have learned are not pro LGBTQ. And when I say turn them in, I'm saying to CPS. Right there in Orange County, there's a case of a family. CPS showed up to the door to take the kids because that family was turned in by the school, not because their kids wanted to transition. Their kids had nothing to do with it, but their opinion of LGBTQ and their belief system not being pro LGBTQ, they were considered a risk as a parent to their family, and CPS came to take their kids. See, this is, I used to think, okay, send my kids to the school system. They can be the leaders. They can influence their peers. But the problem is it's now coming from the top down in such a way that, there are kids that are called to the public. You have to weigh that out with your family. But what I like is when God steps in and he says, we don't have to negotiate with that monster. We don't have to bow down to that monster. We don't have to give our money to that monster. We're actually going to start our own institutions. They're going to be godly institutions, and we still have the freedom to do it in this country. If we were in a communist country, you can forget it. Nobody's having their own school. You can't do that. So this is one of our rights as Americans, is we actually get to start institutions. And so what I want to ask is this. You're going to give your offer here before the hour's over. You're going to share what it is that you want to do, even partnering with Her Voice, because Lesley and I have had a lot of conversations. She's come into a lot of Don't Mess With Our Kids things in Southern California. She is a voice for the Her Voice movement. What we want to do is and this is what we love to do at Her Voice. We love to take systems and blueprints that God has given people and hand them over to people so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They don't have to come up with their own system, but say, no, this is a blueprint that Equip 210 will hand over, will do all the training, will train all the people involved. I mean, it's basically like this. I love this because I'm a business person and I think this way. If I want to make a casserole and I have to start from scratch, I'm going to tell you right now, all my friends that know me, it's not going to turn out very well. If I have to come up with it and just kind of think it through. But if I go online and I see this casserole that has like raving reviews, 1,500 people that gave it a 5-star, I'm going to look at that recipe and I'm going to follow it, right? Why would we not do that with a school? Why would we not take a recipe that's working and apply it to our own children who we would die for, right?
Right.
So I know we die for our kids, but sometimes we won't change for them. That's the challenge right now is adults need to be willing to change for their kids, change the schooling idea, change the way we discipline them, change how we think, change how we do things so that the next generation has their best opportunity to follow Jesus fully into their God-given calling. So, with that being said, what I want you to do, Lesley, is I want you to describe two things.
Mhm.
The first thing I want you to describe is what does it look like for somebody on here to put an Equip 210 school, let's say in their church. Let's
Mhm.
just start there, or with a group of moms that right now maybe they're doing a co-op or they've been thinking about doing a co-op or they're doing homeschool and they're trying to figure this out. What does it look like and what kind of template do you give them? Do you have a very specific curriculum or is that negotiable? Do you have ongoing support for them? What kind of training? How many days a week are the kids meeting? If you could just start kind of listing off some of those things, because I think we need a picture of what it looks like in order for us to lean in and potentially start one of these schools.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, it's important to know that as I've shared about myself, like who I am and what I'm about, we're building the aircraft of Equip 210, and we're also building the runway for alternative education in all education that is parent centered and child centered,
Okay.
because we want to empower the parent. And so, what we've done is we've created an amazing program and movement, and it is a movement. So when you join Equip 210, it's not like you're just going to be this silo by yourself, because it's truly a movement. Just like Her Voice is a movement, Don't Mess with Our Kids is a movement. We're linking the arms and we're taking the mountain of education and we're bringing Jesus Christ to that mountain of education, the Holy Spirit there, because children need to know their identity and they need to know their calling. And we've taken everything that we've gleaned and learned over the past 12 years of stewarding one of the largest homeschool movements and program in Southern California. We're taking all of that and we have made it so that it's replicable in Equip 210. So all the systems, processes, pedagogy of teaching, contracts, handbooks, the IT platform, the LMS platform, all of it. And we basically give that all to you. We train you on it. We equip you on it. The branding that comes along with it, and you are joining and linking arms in a movement. So every single campus that started, you are now connected with that campus. You now have that campus as a resource. So we have a training in January, this January 2024, and this training in January is for those campuses that want to launch fall 2024 or fall 2025. You can come into this January's training. And it's a 12-week training where you get trained on being a director, you get trained on the academics of it, the scheduling of the classes, the curriculum that we're using, like everything. My team and my executive team, we do all that training on leadership as well. Everything that you need to know so that when that 12 weeks ends, we then start the process of determining whether you want to launch in the fall 2024 or fall 2025. We start the marketing of it. We start the registration of it, the interviewing of the teachers. We do teacher professional development, kingdom equipping and identity and calling for the teachers, for the leaders, setting it up so that that goes and that reaches and impacts the child in the classroom. I do a lot of mentoring and coming alongside as well the churches. We just launched in New York. I was there 2 months ago, about a couple weeks after they started. It's like amazing seeing them in action and just like seeing the whole thing that we had talked about and planned and trained on, just seeing it all come together so beautifully and all the testimonies coming out of that as well. So we have a very, do you want me to go into the offer now, or do you want to share? Do you feel
Well,
like
let's
that kind
do
of,
that. Let's have you go
okay,
into the offer because some people pop in and out of this broadcast, and I want to make sure that that is put out there for you. Also, I might just have some Q&A going in the comments because there's
okay.
so many questions around this. Because I mean, I had a million questions, right? When I first started homeschooling way back in the day. And so let's do some of that, but let's do the offer right now. Now, quick question, is that training in person on January 24th?
So it's for 12 weeks and it's on Zoom. It's virtual. So wherever you are in the country, you can be a part of it.
Okay, and it's 12 weeks starting January 24th is the kickoff, and then it goes for 12 weeks. Is that training for the people who are just starting the school, or is it training for everybody who really their core team of men and women that would be a part of it?
Yeah, it can be for both. So we're starting towards the end of January. We haven't locked in the exact date yet. So it's
Okay.
January 2024 is when it's starting. It's starting at
Oh,
the end of the month.
2020. Okay.
Yes. And what we do is we help you, like if somebody today is like, wow, really feeling called to be a part of this. I want to do this. We would schedule a Zoom call, have a whole PowerPoint that we go through, very, very, very detailed, very professional, very detailed, and helping you to identify like who would be like the best director from your community, because a church can start it where they actually would become an Equip 210 campus where they have their own EIN number. They have their own they'll have their own campus, their own ownership of it, with their own like board of directors, and they embrace all of it. And so we would find a director from that campus. In New York, it happens to be the children's pastor is the director of the Equip 210 campus. It doesn't have to be from the church's personal staff. It could be a parent who homeschools in their church who can be the director. So that's one possibility. If you're listening to this and you're like, well, I have property, I have a building that I own, I have a farm that I own, I have, property I want to start, and there's like zoning for it. Like I want to start a school like on my property. I want to start one in the building that I own. Then you can actually become an owner of Equip 210 campus as well. You can become an integrated auxiliary of that campus as well. So it can be in a church. It can be a husband and wife can start one, and they would come into the January training, this January 2024. And even if you're not going to launch until fall 2025, the offer that we have that we're going to be offering today is you can have additional people come into the training next year. If you're like, oh, we found more team members, we would like them to come through the training. They would be able to come through the training without any additional cost. So I say that to encourage you, because if you're like, wow, I really want to do this, I have the unction to do it, I feel like the calling to do it, but I don't have this person yet for that, I would just say step out and step into it and come into the training, and we'll help you find all those other people, and you'll have a long enough runway to be able to do it.
That's great. And that's usually how it works. God always asks me to say yes before I have all the people, because you're saying yes to the Lord, and then boom, he starts providing all the parts and pieces. So let's go ahead and go over the offer, and then we'll answer some more questions.
Yes, absolutely. So the offer is the value of what I'm talking about with anything is, as you can imagine, like the 12 years of experience, the experience of my team that is doing the training as well. Just the legal component. We've had the same legal representation for over 10 years. So all of the contracts and documents and the vetted handbooks, and then all the training that goes into parent teacher conferences, parent student teacher conferences, like all those things that you get trained on, the curriculum, the interdisciplinary study between the history and the science and the English, and then the identity training and the pedagogy, and all of that has a value of $55,000. But what we've done is we've created a very special offer. And for this January 2024, for $17,000, you can come in and be trained and have all the systems and processes and all the training for this January, and for your additional team members in our future training that we have, and to be able to launch a campus for either fall 2024 or fall 2025. And in addition to that, which is really super exciting, is that we are then going to donate back to Her Voice $5,000. So like 1/3 of like what we receive, we're going to donate back to the Her Voice movement to get everybody on the mall in Washington, D.C., October 2024. So we are all about partnering, and we really believe in what Jenny's doing and her whole team and Her Voice, and just feel really excited to be a partner and help help fund this. So we're hoping that as you're listening to it, I would say, if you are sitting there and you're like, oh my goodness, I've like thinking about how I've wanted to start a co-op, or I've wanted to be a director of a program, or you're a pastor of a church and your classrooms are just sitting empty during the day. It's like you have an ark. You have an ark there that can just be filled with children, and you don't have to do anything. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to like try to figure it all out. Like, we come in and we do that all. We like train you, we equip you to replicate and to scale this for children. And then a third of what you pay for that, which is significantly an amazing offer, it's reduced from what it could be, is going to then be donated back to Jenny and her movement of getting kids out of school and getting parents empowered again, and just really bringing our country back to the Lord with with the movement of her voice and don't mess with our kids.
Amen. That's so awesome. And thank you for your generosity, Lesley. That is, I mean, it was shocking to hear when you left that message for me. And I just am thankful, so very thankful for that. There's some of you that, you've wondered how you can contribute, to her voice, to the Million Women on the Mall, to the prayer hubs, to, how can you even resource the movement? And just think about this. For those of you that God is calling for such a time as this, for the institution of education, he's calling you to this. Maybe you're not the director, maybe you are. Maybe you just want to be a teacher in the system, whatever. But just think, if you take this message today and you take the steps to implement this, then you are helping fund her voice, because you're helping children find their voice under a safe authority, right? Jesus and the parents. And I love that you said in the beginning that parents are the authority, right? Jesus and the parents. So really quick, how should they contact you, Lesley? I have your Instagram up here. I have your Facebook. Do you like personal messages, or should they email you? What's the best way?
So they can email me at lrussell@equip210.com.
Okay, at equip210.com. I'm going to put that up here. Okay. And they'll just say, hey, I'm interested. Obviously, nobody is signing on the dotted line when you, when you contact her, right? So you can simply say, I have interest. I'd like to have a conversation. Yeah. And then what'll happen is you'll be able to get your questions answered, because we can't possibly answer them all today, but you'll be able to walk through an understanding to see if this is something that you want to carry forward. So I would just go to L Russell. It is 2 S's and 2 L's. I want to point that out. 2 S's, 2 L's, starts with an L, 2 L's on the end. Equip210.com. So let's go to this. I have a question first, and then I'm going to start putting up some of these questions through the comments. When I did a co-op for a year. We actually did it in our barn. And, this was women. We were all jumping in together. It was hard. I'm not going to say it wasn't, at least for me, it was hard, but it was worth it. There was no such thing as women getting paid. There was no, income coming in for anybody teaching, anything like that. I know there's so many different ways to structure this, but can you share a little bit about how teachers can possibly be funded? Like, is this something where, because I'm thinking about friends that came out of the school system. I have friends that came out of the education system since COVID. And God is calling them, and they've been kind of like torn, right? Between like going in the school system, making a difference there, and then being able to actually do what God's called them to do, but they also need an income to support their family. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I would love to. So, things have to be sustainable, and the whole thing, like, I know after COVID, a lot of people are like, okay, everything's going to be free. Like, you can come into the church for free, and you can teach for free. And, there's just like a nominal amount of money that's charged for a student to be there. And free is not sustainable, and teachers need to be paid. And so we have a very entrepreneurial model. And it has been an amazing model for the past 10 years. We've kept teachers for like over a decade. and they've been paid very well to be part of our program. And so we've kept that entrepreneurial model where the teacher actually gets paid per student. So there's more students in the class, and obviously we have a cutoff of with like maybe like a 15-to-1 student teacher ratio or a 17-to-1 student teacher ratio. But as that classroom grows, every student represents another child to love, another child to pour into, another paper to correct. Just like a doctor gets paid per patient, the teacher gets paid per student being in the class. So it's not like it's a flat hourly amount, it's a per student amount, just based on, where the program is in the country. Because as we know, prices are different. In Southern California, we're paying $6 a gallon for gas, but I was just in West Texas where it was like $2 a gallon for gas. So depending on the socioeconomic level of like where it is, we have that all scaled in and figured out, but that the teacher does get paid well, and they do get paid per student. And it has a very successful and dynamic entrepreneurial model where everybody wins. So everyone who is a part of it is being blessed by it. So I
Yeah,
can
I
go
think I heard you say before that, and I don't know if you've changed this or modified this, so just let us know. But did you say that? Because I was always the one, if I brought my kids into a co-op or whatever, I was always thinking about my friends who were in
Mhm.
my same situation, and then I would refer them in. I
Yes.
never got a break I never got like a tuition cut. I never got, sometimes not even a thank you, which is totally fine. It doesn't matter. But as far as entrepreneurial goes and business goes, I know that business doesn't operate that way. Sometimes as, Christians and trying to make everything free, we actually shoot ourselves in our own foot here. So can you talk to us about about a referral program for
Sure.
families that say, hey, I'm not going to run a school, but I am going to bring a handful of friends that are very concerned about their children. Homeschool is not, been the best for their family, and we need a place to safely drop our kids off every day and have them thrive. So tell us about that a little bit.
So it's called a friends and family referral. So if let's just say a tuition is like $5,000 and you refer it to your friends, let's say 5 friends, and they join in for like the 4 days, then you actually have $1,000 per each child that you have referred into the program. So you can like waive your entire tuition just by telling your friends and family. So just
Mhm.
like how you love to go out and talk about, oh my goodness, that amazing Italian restaurant, or like I love where I get my hair done, or like that coffee shop, and you love to talk and share about like something amazing, like going out and talking about an amazing program like this and sharing it with your friends and family, that you actually can waive your entire child's tuition, your multiple children's tuition, just by sharing about it. And the same with teachers. Even the teachers who come in and they share about it, they are able to receive even additionally that money that would be spent with waiving a tuition for a family, then that is now being spent also blessing the teacher as well. So it's really a very dynamic and exciting model. And already, like at our New York campus, tuition has been lowered for different families there just by sharing it.
Yeah. Well, you're making me think about school choice.
Mhm.
And I know that school choice is something that people are aggressively working on. I know they are in Oregon, California, and school choice is amazing. We should all be praying that that goes through. Can you share just a little about how school choice, what that means? Because a lot of people might not know what that means, but how that might give some families a chunk of money to be able to then put their kids in an equipped 210 school.
Yes, so it's happening across the country, and we're already connected with a woman in Florida because they just, I think, like $1.2 million dropped in Florida for homeschooling families. And so I'm working with a woman there in Florida and in Arizona and Texas. That's all in the works. Now, I have something so exciting for those families in California that I just want to take like a couple minutes just to make you aware of, because I just was asked to be part of this committee, and the mayor of Thousand Oaks was at our gala that we had. He came and spoke, and he was just on my podcast. I do a podcast called Reinventing Education with Leaders and Visionaries. And so he was on, and also Benito Bernal was on, who's running for Congress up in Sacramento. So they were on talking about the CEO Act, and the CEO Act stands for Children's Educational Opportunity Act. And basically, it's a trust, it's an initiative that's going to be on the fall 2026 ballot in California that would give $17,000 to each child. It would go in, it would be in a trust, and parents would be able to access that to send their child to any type of education that they want. They can send them to public school, charter school, faith-based instruction, homeschool hybrids that are a PSP. They would be able to use that. If you're a private homeschooling family, you want to be left alone and just do your own thing, you're not like a part of it. And so it makes everybody happy, because the biggest thing is that parents are empowered, and regardless of like where you fall on the right side politically or on the left side politically, you love your child, and you should want to be able to make choices for your child. And so the CEO Act enables you as a parent to put your child where you want them to be educated. And like all around, we should all be supporting it and getting behind it. We need like 1.2 million signatures that we are going to be getting over the next year and a half. There's like a certain time period that these signatures have to come in for it to be on the ballot. And it is an initiative, and there's no strings attached to it. It's not public. It's not public. It doesn't come from like a school district, this money. It's already part of the California Constitution. And we are just amending that Constitution so that it can be used to empower parents. I call it like a parent empowerment, being able to choose where they send their children. So this is happening in California. School choice is happening across the country. There's initiatives, and there's states that have sanctioned it. And I just want to encourage parents who are listening right now. We are truly in an educational revolution. Things are changing. What COVID did is it pulled back the curtain, and it showed parents all the stuff that was going on. I had parents that would drive over an hour to our campus in San Juan because they just heard in their living room what their teacher who they trusted, their elementary school teacher who they trusted, all of a sudden the things that were being said to their child, and that they were overhearing because it was now on Zoom. And they packed up their children in the car and they drove down to Southern California, because they would never have had any idea, had it not been for that Zoom class coming into their living room, the things that were being said and being shared. So
Wow.
I feel like the curtain has been parted. We see what's behind. Like God is just bringing everything out to the forefront, and He's saying, "Okay, now go clean it up. Go fix it." And we have to step into whatever the calling is that He's given us. We have to step into it in faith, in not fear, and do it. It's kind of like, I feel like this expression, it's a very simple expression, but it's like the tail wagging the dog. Like, we're the majority, and we need to have a voice. And it really upsets me when there's like school teachers, Christian school teachers, who are in classrooms, and you have the administration coming in saying that you cannot tell parents about what's going on in their child during the day, like if they're identifying with something other than their biological gender, or that you can't share that they're being pulled out of the classroom to go get their pride education, which is happening, and parents are
Yep.
not even aware of that. And the teachers being intimidating, saying you will lose your job if you do that. And so there's a recent case up in Northern California where the teacher is like, you know what, that's not me, I'm not going to do that. And she was actually fired from her job. So anyways, I share that because I want to get you fired up and be like, okay, you know what, we're going to take this hill, we're going to link arms, because these are our kids. And you know what, you need to speak now, because you have a voice.
Yeah.
And if they're coming, as Jenny says, who they really want the children.
Yeah.
And so you have to realize that this is what's happening, and to stand up for it and know that there are better ways to educate your children. You want them to be co-creating with God and dreaming, and being able to be part of the learning experience, and having you, the parent, have choices.
Yep.
So
Yep.
thank you.
That's good. Everybody can go to their state and look up school choice. Just Google it, find out what's going on in your state. We have people that are even connected to our church that are working on this, because until we hit the funding of the school system, they're not. Money is what is the name of the game for the school institution. So until you hit the wallet, you can't make a really big difference. And so the school choice is allowing these monies to shift and change, and they're different in every state. I'm going to answer this question. Okay, let me answer this. Okay, here it is. I want to try to put it up here. So Abby asked a great question. What if you don't have the resources yet to start a campus, but want to? I'm going to say this, Abby. This is such a great question for anybody who calls themselves a believer and God is asking you to do something that you're like, okay, but we don't have funding. So what happens here is a lot of people look to their bank account to see if they have the yes or no on something. So what I'm going to advise you to do is ask God, do you want me to do this? If I had $3 billion in the bank, would you want me to do this? If I have zero in the bank, do you want me to do this? So you have to take the funding question out when it comes to God, because God funds what we say yes to. He doesn't fund things before we say yes. This is just a spiritual principle. When we put her voice on the books, it costs $189 per woman to put them in the Oregon Convention Center. And God told us, I want you to have a free ticket. Okay. So that was a little over $700,000 project. We didn't have $700,000 to pay for it. So we had to go before God and he said, do this. And then God began to bring the funds. What I'd recommend you do, Abby, is I would call other moms like yourself that are concerned about the school system. They want a better system. They're not satisfied with their child's current education. Maybe it's just, I'm not satisfied with the fact that my kids homeschool and then we're fighting during the day and they're aggravated at me and I'm tearing my hair out and motherhood is not fun for me anymore. I mean, that could be a lot of women on here. Listen, get some moms together, have a powwow in your living room. I would invite Lesley to come and speak maybe on a live Zoom, but put everybody in a living room and say, can we pray through this and talk through this? And can we fundraise for $17,000? Just like I came to my team and said, can we fundraise $700,000? What do you guys think? And I knew that my yes was my yes, but I had to have my team also. They had to be on board. And they were like, we love it. Let's do it. And then because there was this unity of vision, God blessed it and he opened the doors for the funding. So this is what I would do is I would pull moms together, and it might be, you have 30 moms in the area that come together. You might have 3 moms in the area that come together and say, okay, there's $17,000. How can we fundraise for this? What do you think? But what I know is this, if to reinvent the wheel is the slow track to success. This is the kind of thing that I would absolutely recommend, is that you get this template, you come into a network, you get all these documents, all of these things that take so much time, so much experience, so many years of experience, and you get to purchase years and years and years of somebody else's experience. So I would go before God, ask him for the 17,000, but I would do it with a group of women. And best case scenario is Lesley comes in and maybe speaks to the group for 20 minutes or something like that, answers questions. Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a Q&A. I'm sure, Lesley, you're willing to, do what you can to help these moms understand. So that's that question. The next one. Yes,
Jenny,
please.
just one thing.
Absolutely.
So the way that we got into New York, and this will go with your question, Abby, is I was part of like a really amazing program, Brooke Thomas's Live Out Loud. And there was a mom on there, Sarah. And, I'd be talking about her program and she's like, oh my goodness, my kids would just so love this. And they were currently in public school. And she's like, I really want this for my children. And so, fast forward, she's like, all right, I'm gonna like have that conversation with my pastor and his wife. And she was like really praying about it. And they like went out to dinner and she just asked them, she goes, this is like really important to me. I really want to get my kids out of public school. And like, would you consider like starting an Equip 210 campus at your church? And they said yes. And it's just amazing. She was at our gala. She flew in from New York to speak at our gala, like just the change in her own children being there since September, her like older daughter, just the transformation, the confidence, the leadership, and all that has blossomed just in the short amount of time that they've been there. So if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I want to take this to my pastors, like take it to your church, like pray about it and take it to your pastors and say, look, we want to start an Equip 210 campus here, and the church can become the owner of the program, and you, Abby, you can be the director, and it can be the church
Nice.
that actually is the owner of the program and the venue where it meets.
I love that. And Lesley, because I am a pastor and I know how working with pastors is, if you can go to your pastor and say that very thing, like, I want to get my child out of the public school system, would you consider being the owner of this, but letting a group of us inside the church help coordinate it? If you take the workload off the pastor, but ask them to bless it and fund it, funding's the easier part for most churches, not everybody, but most churches. The hard part is, here's another thing I want you, pastor, to work on because you probably don't have enough to do today. It's usually where pastors back up is where somebody else's vision and mandate is given away to them, rather than saying, we're going to take the load, we're going to find the people, we're going to do the coordination, we're going to do the meetings, we will take on the load. We just want to know, would you be willing to be the owner, the funder, and let this house be a greenhouse for growth in God for children in our community? And you know what? Guess what? You need to mention this. It's going to bring in families to their church. They need to know that this school is an on-ramp to heaven for eternity, a decision for Jesus, but also builds the family and it builds the church and it builds the body. So that's something that most pastors can get behind. And I would just have that meeting, just like you're saying. That's amazing. A couple other questions here. We have just a few more minutes. Okay. One of the questions was, is this a hybrid system? What kind of, is it school all day? Is it just a couple days? Or tell us about that.
That's such a great question. So it can be like a 3-day or 4-day program. We like in New York, it's 4 days, but it's 2 days of core and then 2 days of kingdom equipping, which is all about equipping children in their identity, their calling. It's like a real like this discipleship days. And we do that through electives. So there's families that come just 2 days because they just do the discipling days, the kingdom equipping days, or they come the other 2 days and they do like their core subjects, or they can come all 4 days. In San Diego, we're going to have a program that's going to be 3 days, and you have to go all 3 days because that's how the director of the program there wanted to structure it. And they arrive at 8, they do praise and worship from 8 to 8:30, and then they go to the first class. They're there from 8:30 to 3:30. And so we launch K-6, we can launch K-12, and we didn't really get a chance to get into it, but we're building a collegiate high school where students are going to be graduating with their associate's degree, and they're also going to be graduating with their high school diploma. We're already like working at that, where they would be able to do internships, go into trade schools. We're really breaking ground with that and super excited. In Orange County right now in Laguna Hills, we have a discipleship day on Fridays where high schoolers come in. They learn identity in Jesus Christ. They learn Christian leadership. And they also have launched their own nonprofit on suicide prevention, where they're connecting with public schools in Orange County. They're going to have fundraising, worship nights, and they learn everything about being on the board of directors, writing a mission and vision statement, doing fundraising. So if you're interested and you have a high schooler who's available on Fridays, have a Friday discipleship day for high schoolers.
Wow, that's so good. And I love Sarah. She's been sharing her testimony because they have an Equip 210 church. So she said that her kids love their elective dates, pottery, finance, culinary, Spanish, and more. I can promise you this, I'm not doing that with my kids in a homeschool. That is not something that one mom can probably take on unless she's superwoman, which I've seen a lot of homeschool moms just do incredible things. But this is so good. I love the fact that my child can be well-rounded. I want my child to be exposed to so many facets of the world. I want them exposed to arts. I want them exposed to language. I want them exposed to the pottery. I love that. Like, you usually don't know that you love something until you get exposed to it. You sometimes can't even discover your gifts and what God has put inside of you until you bump into it and you're like, wow, I might
That's so true,
be
Jenny.
excelling at this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this brings me two more questions we have to get to for sure. The first one is my friend Audrey on here. She asked a great question. She has kids that are just dynamic athletes. How does athletics work with this program?
So I don't know if she states what grade they are in, like if they're high school or
High
elementary, middle.
school,
They're high school.
a
Okay, so
junior high and high school. Let's
yeah,
just start there.
it depends on the state and it depends on the sport. So some high school sports are club sports and that they can be done outside of a public high school. Probably the sports where it gets a little more challenging is like, you have a son who wants to play football. You're not going to have like so much a club football team that's normally more like your public, like high school and private schools.
Mhm.
But what we've been doing and we've been really successful is like volleyball teams. Like there's a whole like league for volleyball. We had competitive volleyball teams that competed against like it was in a certain category where we were able to compete against private schools and other homeschool programs, and it was incredible. And speech and debate, I know that's not a sport, but it's still like a
Yeah.
club type of competitive tournaments that they would have in high school. So it just really depends on the sport, and if there is a club sport, then you're able to do that, and then also to be able to homeschool. Some states actually allow it where you can have the student on the sport at the school. You can have the student on the sport at the school, and you're able to homeschool privately, which is great.
Yeah.
If you live in a state
Awesome.
with that, you just have to research that. We've had students who, in high school with our program, the way it's set up is they can be homeschooled, do the homeschool curriculum because they have to play the club sport at that. I'm not sorry. They can do the curriculum of the public high school and be on the sports team in the public high school. But then what they would do is they would come to our high school campus and be able to take all of the leadership classes. So, like I just was mentioning, the Friday discipleship day, these are all a la carte where, they could at least come on Fridays to
Mhm.
do the high school discipleship day.
Yeah.
Even if they have to be in like the public school because they really feel called to play the sport. But I would really pray and press into that because I want to say something about that. Your child going into high school, and it is such a formative, important time. Like it is the last opportunity to really pour into them, to give them a Christian worldview, to really ground them in who they are, their identity, their calling, and what God is equipping them to do next. And a lot of times what happens, it's like their junior year or senior year, even their freshman year of college, like all of a sudden that sport doesn't carry the weight and the magnitude and the importance to them that it did. And then all of a sudden one day that's gone, and you've missed out on that opportunity of really taking those 4 years of really dialing in what it is that they are called, Ephesians 2:10, to do, and really pouring into them so that they are launching into their career, they're launching into that trade school, they're launching into like the next step that God has for them
Mhm.
with Christian identity and calling.
Yeah, and I imagine that, like, say somebody has like a basketball, like, in our town, I'm thinking about our good friends Tiffany and Jeremy Cummings. They have a basketball program, and maybe it's something that they can connect, with the Equip 210. I feel like, Lesley, because you're not coming under the spirit of control. You're coming under an entrepreneurial spirit. You're helping every campus form the opportunities that are important to those families and then building onto that. And there's collaborations and coalitions and all the things that can be done there. So I feel like the possibilities are endless. What about, and this is the last question, and I'm going to pray. If somebody has kids with disabilities, is that something that can be built into the school? Any comments on that? Somebody asked that
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. Another great question. So I'll just kind of start with like the IEP, individualized educational plan. If students that would come into our program over the past 12 years with IEPs, it's amazing how those just disintegrate. They just
Yeah.
evaporate and go away because all of a sudden they get fueled by anxiety, exasperation, just fear because they just see that they're not able to keep up. They've got the IEP, they're being pulled out, and it's just like this pressure cooker. And so when you remove your child from that and you put them in a different setting, it's amazing how all of a sudden they blossom, they learn. Like a D student becomes an A student. The biggest email that I would ever see, I have my child back again. They love to learn. I would see the whole countenance of the child change, being put in a healthy, thriving environment. So we've had autistic children come in where you can just tell socially that they have a different way in interaction about them.
Yeah.
But just being in that setting, by the end of the year, you can't even tell. There's so
Wow.
many stories about that where they come
Wow.
in and just like completely that environment and prayer and interaction and the health of it just completely stabilizes them and launches them into just a whole new perspective of themselves and their identity.
Wow. This is so good. We could talk longer. We are going to have you on our podcast next week. Thank goodness. Everybody just be watching for Don't Mess with Our Kids podcast. has been like mind blowing. The people that God is bringing to the table. And so we're going to have Lesley back on that because we've got to get the word out that we could, through her voice, we could plant dozens and dozens of new schools, which would change the lives, the future of these children. We know wherever we send our child for 6 to 8 hours, 4 to 5 days a week, that is shaping how they think. The other thing I want to say is this, that by the age of 5 years old, we have 50% of what we believe about everything. By the age of 18, 95% of our core beliefs have already been secured. That's why when we get above 18, the devil, that's why he goes to the younger, because he's trying to get their minds to believe things that are not real, to deceive. But when we get to be older, sometimes it's harder for us to change our mind because these core values have been cemented inside the core of our being. That's why school and education is so vital, because a child is going to wake up and go somewhere where somebody wires what they believe and what they think about everything.
Mm.
This is crazy. This is what got me to homeschool. I thought, man, this is going to be interesting because I'm just not a sit down around the table for 3 hours type of person. But I thought, man, I cannot have my kids. I live in Oregon. I can't have my children in kindergarten. Now, when they were older, a couple of them went to high school, for a year. And it was, because they had their solid understanding of what we believe and what's truth and not. But I had a kindergartner and a preschooler during COVID. No way. Absolutely not. Are you going to go and somebody for 6 to 8 hours tell you how to believe and think about the world? Absolutely not. I mean, and I'm not saying that anybody on here has made a bad choice, but where I live, there are very few schools that I could just sit back and say everything's well today with my child. And so this is something that's very, very important to her voice, is that for those women that God is calling to be a solution in your community, and God is calling you into this new season. See, there's this word about being repurposed. I had it in a dream. I don't have time to go into it. But God used this word repurpose. He's repurposing some of us. What is repurposing? Well, just like a tire might have been on a car for 18, 25 years. And now that same tire is being used to build playground equipment. This is what repurpose looks like. For some of you, this is the word I want to give you today on Word on Wednesday. Perhaps is God repurposing you. Some of you grandmas, you're actually going, why do I feel like I should be a part of this? My kids are grown, but God is actually calling you to be mothers and grandmothers inside these Equip 210 schools so that you can pray for these kids. I mean, think about it. You can pray. Nobody's breathing down your neck. You can come alongside them. You can tell them who they are. You can comfort them when they're in pain. You can give them leadership training so they can stand strong and encourage. I just think, wow, what an opportunity for so many of us to step into a place where these children can be not just salvaged and saved, but be totally launched into their destiny. So if you carry the burden, I promise you this, there is somebody in your life that has not watched this episode today. They've not seen this broadcast, but they carry a similar burden. I want you to share this to your social media today. I want you to share this right now. Push that share button, send it out, say, hey, this, I'm carrying a burden for the children and the educational institution. Watch this. Tell me what you think. And then there are people out there that are carrying a burden. They're never going to know about Equip 210 because they're not connected to our social medias. They're not connected to this world, but they're connected to you. So in fact, if you don't feel called to do this, would you still share this? Because somebody in your sphere of influence, I don't care if you have a lot of followers or not very many, somebody in your influence is not sleeping well at night, knowing that their children and their grandchildren are not in the best case scenario for their education and for spiritual leadership in the education system. So please share this. Please be generous with your influence, and we love you for it. Thank you. I'm gonna pray. Father God, I just thank you so much for what you've called us as women and men to do in this hour. Father God, we can't sit back and say we didn't know what to do. We do have questions. Where's the funding coming from? Where's the help coming from? What's the building we're going to use? What's the, how does this all work? But Lord, those are questions you answer after we step in and lean in. So God, for those people on live and by replay that are feeling an urgency to shoulder some of the burden in their community for this right now, would you help them take the next step? Help them take the next step, God, with all the unanswered questions, with all the, I don't know how this works and that and the other thing, that they would still take a next step. And we just thank you for doing it, God. And we bless you and we love you in Jesus' name. Just remember, please, to email Lesley at lrussell, 2 S's, 2 L's, at equip210.com. Russell, 2 L's at the end, at equip210.com. Just email her, say, I'd love to have a conversation more about this. Let her know that her voice sent you, because that contributes. This is crazy. It contributes $5,000 to the ministry to make sure that we can keep doing what we're doing, put 1 million women on the mall, and all the things. Yeah. So you guys, this is such a win. Thank you for your kingdom heart and your kingdom strategy, Lesley. We love you so much. And we'll be having you on this podcast, which will be great too. All right, you guys, take care. God bless you. And we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.